I'm Alex Ford, but everyone calls me Fordy. Yes, Australians are very creative with our nicknames. And I work as head of growth for Askable. So if you haven't heard of Askable, we came into the world in 2017 after seeing firsthand and experiencing firsthand how painful participant recruitment was. Our founder, John, wanted to solve this by offering teams a solution where organizations could find the right participants, which is sometimes harder than it should be, find them quickly, and automate a lot of the logistics that come with facilitating research. We wanted to give design teams a tool that empowered them to be able to never have to say no to research. And we've evolved a lot since then to better support teams with the demands of research delivery. But at our core, our mission has always stayed the same, which is to accelerate product improvement around the world. What makes my role so unique? Come on in, guys. What makes my role so unique and very special to me is that I get to work with so many different people across so many different organizations. I work with UX researchers, I work with UX designers, I work with product designers and product leaders. I work with stakeholders and directors and founders across organizations of all different shapes and sizes and different stages of design maturity. So this is from like startups to agency to huge enterprise organizations. And what I've learned is that no organization or product or design team is the same. I am still learning every single day when it comes to solving some of the unique challenges that come with executing research. And it's one of the biggest reasons I'm so passionate about continuous discovery as a framework that can be embedded into product and design teams, because I've seen firsthand the positive impact it can have. So I'm keen to share with you a little bit about what obviously continuous discovery is, a brief rundown of how it can work. We'll jump into the why it's so valuable and unpack a little bit why teams don't do it. And if I don't ramble for too long, we should have some time for Q&A, but if we don't, it's okay. I'll hang around and you can throw questions at me then. So maybe you've heard the buzz around continuous discovery and how it can be utilized as an approach to building better products. I acknowledge that continuous discovery has received a lot of hype over the last year or so. And to firstly clarify what I mean by discovery is what we're really talking about here is continuous generative research, conducted with the sole purpose of extracting opportunities that can then funnel into a team or business that are then utilized to positively influence an organization's overarching business outcomes. I think the word discovery over time has been misunderstood to include any form of qualitative research. But when I say discovery research, again, I'm really just referring to that purely generative research. What we're not talking about is evaluative research, whereby we're figuring out whether a proposed solution or a hypothesized solution is on the right track. Continuous discovery is not about testing hypothesized solutions to problems. It's about gaining an understanding of the opportunity itself as your users perceive it. An analogy I love to use to explain the benefits of continuous discovery is that if we took a dartboard and the bullseye is representing our target outcome or our business outcome or our business goal, now, we can go away from the dartboard and generate a list of solutions and start to throw these solutions at our dartboard from range. And wherever the dart lands, we move forward with evaluative research, which may bring back false positives. Yes, we've thrown a solution at the dartboard, but there's a few problems with a solution first or hypothesis first process. It's perhaps a solution to a problem that doesn't really exist, or perhaps we've misunderstood the problem and so we haven't solved it effectively. Maybe it's a stakeholder-centric solution, so it's just been handed down and we're doing some testing. But sure, the solution might do something. You maybe have hit the dartboard, but the target is pretty small and you're standing pretty far away. And chances are you haven't hit the bullseye. What generative research does is zero in on the bullseye. Every week, you take a step closer to that dartboard. It narrows down your target scope, identifies real existing opportunities with users so that when you go to throw your dartboard, you can't not hit the target. Unless you're really bad at darts, but I promise you no one in this room is that bad. It then makes the evaluative research that comes thereafter quicker, less wasteful, and more likely to actually generate the impact you set out to achieve. A winning combination includes, obviously, generative and evaluative components, but only if the evaluative research is built upon a foundation of generative research habits. We see quite often organizations skipping the generative component entirely and just heading straight into solution testing. I want you guys to take a minute and just ask and reflect for yourself. Like, have you or your team ever been in a situation where you've been working on a product or a feature that just didn't deliver the value it was intended to? Again, I promise you, you're definitely not alone if your answer was yes on that. So what I'm excited to talk to you guys about today is the power of that generative piece and how adopting a continuous discovery framework enables teams to navigate the product development journey with clarity and purpose and confidence, ultimately leading to more impactful outcomes, but also happier users. Put simply, continuous discovery is a framework of weekly touch points where a really small number of participants are interviewed in pursuit of product outcomes. So the first thing is defining a clear desired outcome. So this is a business outcome. So it could be increasing revenue, it could be customer acquisition, it could be customer retention, market share expansion. And then after that, you want to decide on your product outcomes. So a product outcome typically measures customer sentiment around your product, or about how they engage with it, or how they feel about it. And that's going to directly influence the broader business outcome. Teresa Torres, who wrote the Continuous Discovery Habits book, which is fabulous, came up with the opportunity solution tree. You put your business outcome at the top, and as you synthesize insights from your research, you map out the opportunities. In this context, an opportunity is an unmet customer need, a pain point, or a desire. Opportunities expose gaps in the market where you can create value for your users. When you address opportunities in a way that drives the outcome, you create both customer value and also business value. A solution in this instance can be like a product, a feature, a workflow, a process. It could be documentation. It could be anything that offers your users and addresses a known issue to them. I think it's really important to acknowledge that while there are foundational components to effectively executing continuous discovery, the implementation can vary really significantly from one team to another. This variability stems from the unique organizational structures and dynamics that I see are inherent to each team. At Askable, we've witnessed firsthand the diversity of design and product teams and research teams, recognizing that no two teams operate under identical circumstances. And while we support teams in being able to establish their own continuous discovery practices internally, there are a lot of valid reasons as to why facilitating continuous discovery internally doesn't work and actually isn't the preferred way of working. So during the pandemic, we launched Askable Plus, which supported teams with end-to-end research delivery and gave them the capacity to kind of scale up and scale down their research efforts as they needed. It took off pretty quickly, and then we went on to build in a continuous discovery function utilizing Askable Plus for organizations who wanted to adopt and embed this process into their team, but for reasons I'll get into a bit later, just needed the support to actually execute it. So with that context, I'll be sharing a little bit about how we execute continuous discovery utilizing Askable Plus for our clients as an example of its potential implementation. So what essentially happens is we learn what an organization's business outcome is. We want to understand what the client's potential product outcomes are. We want to learn about their users. We want to know, so we know how to recruit the right people. And then we go away and facilitate the research and deliver the opportunities and insights back into that team so that they can then map out solutions which then can undergo further testing. So it's pretty straightforward. But what I love so much about this process and what makes this framework so unique is that you're consistently learning. And as we learn, we get to pivot and optimize the brief. Maybe we've uncovered an opportunity that we want to explore further. Maybe we want to pivot on the recruitment spec and talk to a different participant segment and compare uncovered opportunities. We have this amazing opportunity to ensure that we're always uncovering value and relevant insights. As the weeks go on, the insights build up, and we start to categorize these insights in a library for teams so that they can be always accessed and referred back to. We also share these insight snapshots with business leaders to keep them informed and effectively socialize research. So I'm sharing this as a way of kind of hopefully visualizing what continuous discovery can look like. So now we get into the fun stuff. Why continuous discovery? So the first point I want to make is about risk management. And I know that sounds really boring, but it is really important. So we do need to talk about it. In the realm of UX design and product development and research, the primary responsibility is to deliver solutions that truly address the needs of your users, but also drive impact outcomes aligned to your business goals. However, without a structured approach to understanding user needs and market dynamics, we're essentially navigating blindfolded, taking on significant risks with every decision we make. This is where the continuous discovery framework emerges as a critical risk management tool. By prioritizing ongoing generative research and exploration, we gain valuable insights into user behaviors and those pain points and their aspirations. And these insights then serve as a guide, helping us make more informed decisions at every stage of the product development lifecycle. So without it, we're left relying on assumptions and guesswork. We expose ourselves to unnecessary risks and potential pitfalls. I'm often tasked with engaging with stakeholders and directors and founders and all walks of life that do not come from a design background. And mitigating risk is what really resonates with them. A common question we ask clients who come to us who are like ready to rock and roll with a lot of research, usually evaluative because they've got a hypothesis about what's going to work. And our question is, well, how do you know that? If Y is, okay, the business outcome that you're wanting to influence and X is a solution, how do you know that X is going to do that? How is it going to influence Y? A really good example of this is a client that came to us a little while ago, and they had this huge 6-month research roadmap mapped out for a lot of evaluative research because they wanted to build an app. And it had lots of prototype testing and user testing. It looked fabulous, but our question was, well, why an app? How do you know that an app is going to have the impact you want it to? Which for them was to generate more revenue. It became very clear very quickly that it was a stakeholder-centric decision. So when the opportunity arose to talk to those stakeholders and ask them, well, how do you know? How do you know it's going to have this impact? They didn't. So we asked for a big timeout, take a step back, let us run some generative research to better understand your users and really try to uncover what opportunities are there that will help you generate revenue. And if the answer is an app, the answer is an app. But let's just be 100% sure, well, as close to sure as we can be, before you go and invest about £200,000 in this app and about 6 months of your product and design team's resource. So we went away, we did the research, we came back with the insights, and there was absolutely zero desire for an app. In fact, a lot of their users said that they would not use an app, which was shocking to the stakeholders. But what we did find was that there was a bunch of opportunities that were right there that were going to be way faster to fix and way cheaper to fix, and we knew were going to have that desired outcome. So this client was initially very research adverse, and within a few weeks, they actually kicked off continuous discovery as a process for their organization because they never wanted to be in that position again. They never wanted to be that close to investing so much into an idea that wasn't going to pay off. And in fact, it made them reflect and be like, how many times have we done this and we've just not realized? The second thing I want to talk about is the competition out there. So a study by PwC found that 32% of customers would literally stop doing business with a brand that they love after just one bad experience. And additionally, 59% of users said that they would switch to a competitor if they felt like that competition was offering a better experience. So not only do organizations need to prioritize positive experiences with their products and their users to ensure that but also make sure that they're innovating to exceed customer expectations more than their competitors. Something that can happen when an organization is fixated on their competition is that they spend all of their energy just looking at what their competitors are doing, watching and just waiting for new features to be shipped and then dropping everything and then following suit and trying to ship a similar feature as quickly as possible. Sure, you're staying in the game, but you'll never be the competition without innovation. We recently hosted a panel of fintech and banking experts across kind of design and product, and they were absolutely fabulous. And they were talking about how they managed the pressure to innovate in such a competitive landscape. And they spoke about how things kind of kicked off when Monzo released their POTS feature, which is like it would automatically split bills and spending and savings and all of this amazing things, I guess, automatically. And so there was a lot of competitors of Monzo that kind of thought, and their first thought was, oh my God, like we need to make something exactly like this. But Neeraj, who's from Metro Bank, said something that really stuck with me. He said, your customers are your customers for a reason. Stop looking at your competitors to explain what your users want and what they need from you, and just talk to them instead. Allowing your competition to serve as a map of what will retain your users isn't sustainable. What's amazing about continuous discovery is that it allows your users to show you the way to what they want and also share what they don't want, and also why they haven't switched to a competitor, or why they're thinking about it, or why they just did. And continuous discovery isn't just about executing research with your existing users. It's about talking to the users of your competitors or people who aren't even familiar with your product. You have the capacity to learn so much more from different customer segments and new markets so that you can actually uncover real opportunities that maybe even your competitors haven't clued onto. The third thing I want to talk about is getting strategic. So there is so much pressure on UX and product and research teams to adopt a more strategic role within an organization. This is especially true, I think, for researchers at the moment. I've been reading so many articles and LinkedIn posts that describe the reckoning of UX, especially around research. And Judd Anton, who was the head of research for Airbnb and Meta, wrote an article about just that. And he pointed to the reason for this being is that we've just been doing the wrong type of research. He points out that teams just haven't been doing enough macro research, which he describes as strategic in nature and future thinking, generative research. It should help an organization decide on long-term goals and prioritize different approaches in terms of achieving them. Generative research has the power to empower individuals and teams to get strategic because you have the key, valuable and meaningful insights. Unlike tactical research, you can identify opportunities that have the greatest potential to drive business outcomes and support your organization's long-term success. By utilizing the insights you're generating through continuous discovery, you can not only ensure that your team's efforts align to your organization's overarching business goals, but actually influence future business decisions. Think about it. Have you ever been in a meeting and somebody important in the room asks, like, what do we know about X? And nobody is able to really answer that question confidently because there's never been any dedicated research done on X. Continuous discovery gives you this baseline of insights that you can bring to the table before people start assuming that firstly they understand the problem itself and then start throwing solutions around the room. It gives you an opportunity to know the answer before anyone's even asked the question. And being able to feed valuable insights into more of your organization that help shape the next big decision or influence how they go about executing business objectives makes you really invaluable. The last thing I want to talk about is how quickly things are changing. I wish it would slow down, but it won't. And in today's rapidly evolving landscape, uncertainty has become the new norm. Economic shifts and technological advancements and changing customer preferences has created this really volatile environment for organizations of all sizes. So for product teams and designers and researchers, navigating this space, tasked with creating value and driving positive outcomes for your organization has never been more crucial, but it's also never been more complicated. At Askable, we say that organizations that truly and deeply understand their users are the ones that win, and that's because they can make the right decisions faster than anyone else. I've seen how teams that stay close to their customers, understand their evolving needs, are able to deliver solutions that truly resonate, are better positioned to weather uncertainty, and seize opportunities for growth. Continuous discovery isn't reactive, it's this proactive approach to building products and experiences that are resilient and actually mean something to your user. So one I get all the time is, but our organization did a big piece of discovery research about 6 months ago. We spoke to a bunch of people and we learned so much and we feel so confident about the fact that we understand our users that we've now mapped out the next 12 months of product development. What makes continuous discovery so powerful is that you are not working with or relying on outdated research. And given how quickly our world is evolving, customer pain points and their expectations of you and your product are changing on a weekly basis. And that is terrifying, but it is true. By talking to users every week, you have the capability to follow their evolving expectations and needs. You will learn so much more about your users by splitting 100 interviews over 12 months in just little weekly bites than you will be by trying to execute these huge pieces of discovery research that happen every so often, because that research will be outdated in literally no time at all. So to kind of summarize, anything is dangerous if you're doing it blindfolded. And I would argue that the luxury of building the wrong thing without consequences to an organization just doesn't exist anymore. It is the Wild West out there and the competition is pretty fierce. But by adopting a truly user-centric approach to product development and trying to understand what makes your organization special will serve you better than always being a few steps behind your competition. I do believe that there is a huge opportunity for researchers and product and design people to better influence business strategy, but you can't confidently do that without any real insights. And lastly, don't assume that your customers aren't changing and evolving really quickly. Their thoughts and their opinions and aspirations and situations, they are changing faster than ever. So now I want to touch on why people don't do it. And I think it's really important to highlight this because although a lot of people look at continuous discovery and read the book and feel super inspired and wow, this is going to change everything, I would be doing everyone a disservice if I didn't talk about why it's actually really challenging to execute in the real world. So, why not? It is super time consuming. Carving out time to facilitate even just 2 to 3 sessions a week and 2 to 3 sessions an interviews is actually a huge ask. I don't know who's sitting around and just is oh yeah, I'll take that on. But honestly, for a lot of teams, what's really happening is that the barrier for entry is the recruitment and the scheduling of participants. So if you're having to do all of that manually yourself, yeah, that is that's too much. You can't do that. So I encourage you to find tools out there that do help automate a lot of that logistics. Askable. So then capacity. Not everyone is specialized in facilitating research, and perhaps those people that can are already at capacity. In which case I encourage you to explore outsourcing or kind of thinking outside the box when it comes to some of the heavy lifting in this case. However, if your team does have capacity and this is something that you guys want to take responsibility for, it's important to recognize that this endeavor is equally important to the tactical tasks that often divert attention. I help teams get continuous discovery up, running, happening, functioning, and 6 weeks later, the reason it's fallen through is because someone pulled them onto something else, or this became more important, or this is now the priority. Everyone has to have buy-in across the organization to avoid that from happening. Perceived complexity. So, oh my God, weekly insights, that is too much, we'll be overwhelmed. I would argue that there is no such thing as too many insights. And although there can be a lot and it is quite a steep learning curve in the beginning, like any new thing that we learn, there is a curve over time. You're still learning, but they're not all new insights. And what you're getting is kind of this different depth of insight. It's expensive. All I'll say to that is that how expensive is it to test a bunch of crap that never should have been built in the first place? The other one is complex org structures. So who owns it? This is a really interesting one. I think this is one of the things that gets, is so unique to every team. This is so dependent on what that structure looks like, but I think it's really important to be able to collaborate with neighboring teams or neighboring functions and really try and bring everyone together to better understand who's going to benefit from something like this, because I guarantee you it won't just be you. And then who can facilitate it and who can own it and own its delivery back into teams effectively so everyone's seeing the benefits. Another one is cultural resistance, which I kind of label as just stakeholder ego. Users don't know what they want. Continuous discovery is a brilliant way of getting your users to a seat at the table. And I think that's something we're all really, really passionate about. Like at the end of the day, that is what we want. And I know it's challenging to try and get buy-in from stakeholders, but it is doable. I promise you it is doable. Sometimes they just don't understand the value of it until they see it in front of them. The last one is innovation. So this is an interesting one that I see a bit. How does CD help with innovation? And I think this comes from that quote from Henry Ford where he said, if I'd asked customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Your goal in continuous discovery is to learn about whom you're building for, not what you should build. Your users can't tell you what the next big thing will be. Sometimes they try, but they don't know. And that's probably because they don't understand the full capability of your product. But your job is to synthesize the user insights to inform the innovation. I want to point out with those, there are more, challenges that teams have to overcome when kind of adopting continuous discovery. So feel free to reach out and obviously ask for support or, storytell. I said, the amazing thing about this is we have such an incredible community of people that do want to help and support one another in finding ways forward. And because I get to speak with so many different organizations, I've seen a lot. So I'm always happy to obviously chat around what you're experiencing and see if I can kind of offer any kind of advice to overcome that. Look, I hope you found my ramblings at least enlightening and perhaps somewhat curious and maybe hopefully sparked a bit of that about how to embed generative research into your team or organization and start to think about, what outcomes really, really matter. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I said, please reach out at any time. I will hopefully be back in Manchester again very, very soon. This is my first time. I've had a fabulous time. I'm always excited to hear what's happening in your world.